background. He takes everyday things that happen to us in real life, like waiting tables, like wrestling in high school, things like that, and he talks about the benefit of those later in life. And so I welcome for the first time today to the Dr. Gina Show my next guest, Isaiah Hankel. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hankel.
Hi, Dr. Gina. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Now, I'm so intrigued because as my poor listeners have had to hear me talk on and on about, wrestling is something that has been a part of my whole entire life. I was a wrestling cheerleader. I married a wrestler. I believe wrestling is so, I could never verbalize why I thought wrestling was so important in life. And I want you to talk about the things, and you've got a lot of them listed out here, 120 of them to be exact, but things we can learn from wrestling that benefit us in business later. Talk about that.
Yeah, so if I had to summarize it all into kind of the top three things, elite sports like wrestling, and there's been a lot of scientific studies that have shown this, is that elite athletes, first, they know how to work hard, like really hard, so they're not averse to that. Two, they're comfortable with dealing with failure, so they're not afraid of risk, in other words. So, and this is something, obviously, if you're starting a business, you have to be willing to deal with some risk. And then finally, they're more emotionally intelligent. And again, a lot of studies, wrestlers, specifically people that do individual sports that are very demanding, they have a higher level of emotional intelligence. They're able to kind of separate personal from professional things and not take a serious hit or a failure as an end-all, be-all.
That's interesting. And so when you're using the word emotional intelligence, just define that for the audience for a moment.
Yeah, so to be able to be sensitive to other people's emotions that might be involved in certain, transactions. If you're negotiating, for example, you have to understand if the other person is getting angry. You have to be able to sense if they're getting bored, if they're losing interest, these kind of things. So subtle variations, and also expressiveness. You got to be able to express yourself in a way that people can understand. And again, going back to sensitivity, know if they're not understanding you and kind of adjust course along the way.
Yeah, and I just love some of these. You've got a lean horse runs a long race. I mean, that just echoes back to watching, whatever guy I was dating at the moment, cutting weight and going through all that and running in a trash bag. I mean, just crazy things that they did to try to get down to what was really just the leanest, meanest fighting machine out on the mat. You say creating allies is something that's a life skill. I mean, a lot of us don't learn to really do that until later in life. Befriending your competitors. You have to shake hands at the beginning of a wrestling match. There were times where I just really wanted to kick that guy because I already knew his reputation on the mat. But
there's a lot you can learn from him. Obviously.
But there's a lot you can learn from that, exactly. And you say competition makes you a better person. Schools are eliminating competition, Doctor. And I just really want to ask you what you think about that. A lot of schools today, it's all about self-esteem. Everybody gets a trophy. How does that work out?
There was something on the news recently where if you beat another high school football team by too many points, you can actually be fined.
Oh my gosh!
State. So I think that can be harmful to kids growing up because, one, I think it's really healthy to kind of have an outlet for your more kind of aggressive behaviors, and business is a good outlet for that. Sports are a great outlet for that, where, it's not aggressive where you want to hurt somebody. It's aggressive where you want to be the best you can be, and you want to push yourself to a higher level. And so I think if you get rid of competition, then you're going to get rid of people competing with themselves to be a better person overall, or to add something more valuable to other people.
Yeah, I don't want to see the guy that just got the trophy for showing up. I don't want to see him in the boardroom. I really don't ever want to see that. Some of these you put might surprise people. Here's one that I found particularly attractive. Smell blood. Tell us about that one.
How did I know you're gonna pick that one? Yeah, so like I say with that one, on the wrestling mat or a football field, if people don't know what wrestling is, if you face a weaker opponent, some people will, because they're weaker, they'll take it easy on them. And I think that doesn't benefit either person. And then there's another type of person where they'll see a weaker opponent and they'll want to crush them completely. And I think that's actually a healthier way to do it because think about if you're on the other end of that equation. You don't want people to take it easy on you or to show charity. You want them to give you your best so you can get better. Like the reason that I was able to, the thing that got me to be a better wrestler faster than anything else was throwing myself in the mix with people that were much better than I was. And I kind of had to step up to the game, so to speak. And so I think that in life, if you want to continue to get better, you have to surround yourself with better people. And taking it easy on the people that are trying to step up to be at your level, you're not doing them any good.
You crack me up because you even go down to the nitty gritty here. You say everyone remembers a cool name. That is so true. I can still remember wrestlers' names from high school who had cool names, and you never forgot them. You mentioned two of them. You say from Iowa, of course, Iowa University, Mark Ironside and Mike Big Rig.
Big Rig was he was at Navy.
Yeah.
So I wrestled in Pennsylvania, and so every time I heard that name, I was like, why not me? Why can't I have that name? But it's really true. And, of course, obviously in business, you remember cool names. I mean, you said you like Cheeky Scientist. That didn't just happen. You try to key in on these things that people are going to identify with and things that are going to be catchy, no matter what you do. I mean, Dr. Gina, that's also catchy, right? So
I don't know. I don't think it's quite as catchy as Cheeky Scientist. I really like that. Another one, you didn't say, everything's not all about blood and guts and gore, and this isn't all about just smelling blood and then taking advantage of your weaker opponent, but you said things like this, and I love this because I've always believed that the more gentle the man, the stronger he probably is. Politeness is a sign of toughness. Where is that happening on the wrestling match? I think I might have missed that.
Yeah, so some people lose their temper on the mat, right? And you see this a lot in high school where a kid will just snap because he's in the middle of a tough match, and he'll maybe throw a punch. It doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while it does.
Oh, yeah.
And really, that's a sign of weakness.
Yes.
That's a lack of emotional intelligence. You don't have control over yourself. And on some matches I remember seeing one kid literally get punched by the other wrestler, and he just turned around, went back to the center of the mat, and he was ready to wrestle again. And now that was the kid that I wanted to be. That was cool. It didn't even faze him. It didn't take him out of his game, nothing. Like he was on point the entire time. And so that's what I mean by politeness. And you'll notice this in the business world too. If you're able to control yourself and not let things bother you, I mean, sure, you want to get riled up or motivated, but you don't let people take you outside of your game plan.
I love these two, and I can't leave them out because I think they are so important, and they're really important life lessons. Don't overestimate your opponent. Ignore him or her completely. Don't underestimate your opponent. Ignore him or her completely. I mean, shouldn't you know the moves? Shouldn't you study it like chess where you understand what your opponent is bringing at you? I think recently in my life I've realized this, ignore your enemy completely, but shouldn't you know them too, and how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say try to focus on the skill sets or the moves, but don't focus on the person. A lot of people, they really worry about kind of the persona, and their own persona to a fault sometimes. But if you focus on the results or the actions that are going to be occurring, it can lead you to a much better place and help you get better. Like you might want to learn how to, counteract a certain attack, but you don't need to worry about the person's reputation and get intimidated by it, or their lack of reputation and feel overconfident because of it. I mean, really, you should be spending most of your time focusing on how you can improve and get better and yourself and not what other people are doing.
Excuses make you sad and weak. Save it. No one cares. Keep excuses to yourself. My children, my staff, everyone in my life knows that is my absolute favorite one, number 48 on your list. Excuses make you sad and weak. Save it. No one cares. Keep it to yourself. Blood time is short. This is important advice. Explain that one.
Yeah. You don't have time to, blood time. Blood time is short.
Yes.
Yeah, so in wrestling, you have a certain amount of time. You got 5 minutes if you're bleeding, right? So if you're bleeding from the nose, whatever, you got 5 minutes to clean it up, stop the blood, or the match is over. And in a similar fashion, you have about a minute and a half of injury time. And if that time runs out, guess what? The game's over, you lose. And it's great because in life, it's the exact same way. You either deliver or you go down, and you can start over, of course, but your excuses aren't going to matter. You can't beg the ref for more blood time. You can't beg him for more injury time. You can't say it's not fair. The match is over. You lose. You don't get to go on to state or nationals or whatever goes on to follow. And in business, if you don't close the deal, you don't get to sell. If you don't push yourself and continue to raise yourself to a higher level, it's all on you, and it's nobody else's fault.
Pain is motivation. All growth requires pain. I say things like that so often. I always say nothing in life worth doing is easy. That's sort of one of the mottos. Actually, somebody made a meme of me saying that because I say it so often and repetitively. And no, it wasn't one of my children, although it could have been. But one you say is break yourself. Work hard to break yourself mentally over and over again because you'll always come back stronger and stronger. Is that always true, and is there a point where you are too broken?
That's a good question, and it's pretty deep. Just to give some people some background, so in wrestling we use the phrase a lot, break your opponent. And you want to break them mentally because people can be in great shape, but if you break them mentally and you throw them out of their game plan, the body's going to go where the head does. They're going to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
And so pushing yourself further and further so that your breaking point, your threshold, is higher and higher is important. And this is also important for life. You got to continue to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow. Growth starts outside of your comfort zone. You've probably heard that before. It's very true. So you want to kind of almost seek out chances to fail, seek out things that intimidate you. I kind of like to use intimidation as a kind of a siren letting me know that I absolutely should do that and I need to do that to grow. And so that's what I mean by break yourself over and over. And yeah, obviously I don't mean break yourself, run off a cliff and see if you survive, and if you don't, it'll make you stronger. There's a limit. But as far as pushing yourself to be better, I'm not sure if there is a limit.
Interesting. And I love this one. Get mean. Stop letting people walk all over you. Put people in their place and set some boundaries. But what about being nice? Doesn't that get you somewhere in the boardroom? No?
It does. And I have a couple before that say, be nice. Don't take things so seriously. And that comes back to being emotionally intelligent, too. There are people that are going to try to bait you into conflict, and you have to be able to shrug it off and just be nice. And being nice goes a long way in business. But there are times when people are going to do things that are passive-aggressive. They are going to try to, take your job or maybe take the deal from you, or they're not pulling their weight. And you have to be direct with them, and you have to, blast them in a sense and let them know. You don't have to just continue to take it. And really, you have to set these kind of boundaries very early, whether it's with a new job or starting a business. You have to let people know that you have a line that they can't cross, or they will walk all over you.
All right, and last but certainly not least, one I think that is critically important in sports, in business, in life, give back. In high school, your wrestling team gave motivational talks to junior high and so on. Mentoring, important in the workplace. Giving to charity, important in the workplace. Talk about that.
Yeah, and there's a reason that I put that as last on the list. I think there are people that have helped you get to where you are. The first two things I had on the list was that wrestling is an individual sport, and then the second is wrestling is a team sport, because it's very individual, and you have to learn self-reliance, and it is, in a certain respect, all on you. But there are mentors, there are coaches, there are people that teach you things, because if there wasn't nobody to teach you anything, you would never learn. So you have to acknowledge that. And then when it's your turn to give back, when it's your turn to be a mentor or a coach, seize that opportunity, because you'll learn just as much from giving back as other people are going to get from you. So it's really kind of focus on contributing, and you'd be surprised what kind of opportunities that will bring you.
I love it. I really love it, and I really think this is one of the best articles I've ever read in my life as far as just plain, simple, straight up, good, solid life coaching, and I'm really glad that my friend posted that on his Facebook page, and I discovered you. I want to have you back on because I do want to talk about, you wrote another article called 55 Things Waiting Tables Taught Me About Entrepreneurship, and I want to have you back on for that. We're out of time today, but we will get you back on if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show. Dr. Isaiah Hankel, you can find him at Isaiah Hankel, and that's HANKEL.com, and also CheekyScientist.com might be the best name of a website ever. You can also find him on Twitter at Isaiah Hankel as well.